Hi everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates, and I am doing a part one of a project that I've been thinking about for quite some time. It involves some die cutting of circles. It involves some thrifted fabrics. It involves some thrifted linens, vintage linens, and the main thing is thrifted denim. Denim jeans, denim jackets, but thrifted denims. So I'm going to try this project. It's going to be a container. So all these products I'm going to make into a fabric container. And one of the things I'm really excited about too is using the denim, seeing how that works. I'm going to also make a few yo-yos, Suffolk puffs, out of some of the fabric. So let me share with you how I'm going to make this. If you have watched some of my previous videos, you'll know that I have a problem with ironing. So I didn't iron this. And just to prove that I have a problem with ironing, I had a battle with the iron and the iron won. This just happened yesterday. Yeah. So I didn't iron this. Didn't want to iron it. Didn't need to iron it, I didn't think. Anyway, you know, when you battle an iron, it'll generally win. That's all I can say. At least this didn't hurt that much. Okay, so what I did, this is just a scrap piece of muslin. I cut it 24 and a half inches wide by 11 inches tall. And it's going to be, I'll probably have to iron it just to make it more accurate, but this is going to be the basis for my container. So I'm going to use some of these fabrics, and probably this piece of the linen. But the main thing I want to do is assemble this so that I'm using mostly the denim. These pieces are going to be like the little accent colors, but the basics are going to be the torn denim. So what I need to do is first off mark my fabric. Now it's not going to show. Okay, so I did 12 inches and then I'm doing 6 inches and 6 inches. And this again is only a guide so that I can lay out my denim. So I've been hesitant about cutting into the denim for a very strange reason. Although it's very plentiful, to find. I got all of these from Facebook Marketplace. But you still kind of find the torn pieces very precious. I'm going to try to use it and trim it as carefully as possible. I do like the idea of the torn edges, so where I can tear it, I am going to tear it. But the main thing is to make it as thrifty as possible. I had ideas for these loops as well. Don't know if I'm going to be able to use it, but so I'm going to leave a little bit of fabric down below it, right here. So if I need to stitch it onto something, I'll have that. Oh, look, a pocket. Okay, so there's one piece. I like this bottom edge too. And I definitely plan to either use or save the pocket as an extra piece. We'll see. I have other ideas for this, for using the denim. It is such a durable fabric. Again, I'm leaving a little bit of fabric on the bottom there, so if I do want to sew it onto something, And then I have this little bit of distress right there. Save that. Ooh. I might even try to use this little coin pocket here for something. Well, let's just take a look. And, you might find a use for this piece as well. I just want to see if I could grab this little pocket piece. The thing I would recommend is that if you're planning to do more projects with distressed denim, you could just cut away pieces that you need at the moment and set these aside for future use. Because if you really look at some of this denim, there are just so many pieces, bits and pieces you could do something with. Okay, so I have a little pocket there. I have these nice distressed pieces, slightly different shade of blue, which I like. Okay, again, I'm leaving a little extra, so when I'm ready to stitch it down, I can do that. Okay, so I have that piece. I have a couple of pieces here. Now, the other thing too is you're going to need, obviously you're going to need enough to cover this whole piece. So I would suggest going back through, and we're going to cut these pieces apart into smaller sizes. So that's just one part of it. But this sounds really funny, but when I bought a piece of, or I bought some denim pants on Facebook Marketplace, the nice lady was asking me, what are you going to do with this? And I said, I'm going to make a pouch, because that's the original thought. And she goes, oh, hold on. I think I have something you can use. And she came back and gave me pant legs, disembodied pant legs. So obviously her daughter, I believe, made cutoffs and didn't want the leg parts. And these were exactly what I needed. And the lady was so nice and just gave them to me. And like, perfect, thank you. Yes, please. So I had shorts from one person, and now I have the legs from another person. So it'll all work together. And if you try to get the colors kind of close, the denim colors, you can mix and match them very easily. So I'm going to cut some pieces off of this one, not necessarily with all this torn places, because there's some on the back, or I could save the more solid pieces for another project later. But I do need to pull some pieces to start filling in these panels. So I'll just keep cutting away and be back in a bit. Just want to show you real quick too, like right here where the seam is and it's a little distressed. I could save that for the back side if I'm going to use this for another project. be kind of interesting to have this seam in there too. So I'm going to give it a little bit of space and keep that seam part intact. And I mean, sort of like how here I cut really close to it. I'm going to leave maybe about an inch so that it becomes something interesting to be used elsewhere. You just never know what you're going to find and use and piece together. So it's kind of fun. And to be honest, I was a little leery about doing the first cut. I didn't want to waste these precious tears or ripped holes. Another thing to watch for when you're searching for denim, distressed denim, is also look for texture too, because you can see this is a much finer texture of denim compared to like this piece, and it's not just color, it's also the texture. So, just kind of be aware of that. You want to look for the distressed part, but also texture and color. There's a lot to look for. So what I want to do is make some strips of denim. And since these are the skinniest legs, I want to tear them into strips. So I'm going to cut them about to here so I could get strips from both sides. Let me explain too, on the other jeans, when you're working with jeans like this, where the leg part of it is that sometimes, or you should save like the calf area, because this is the widest area. You'll get some like a nice square piece of, size of denim, and even the leg part, depending on the style of jean. If so save the wider parts. Don't cut these into to make strips if you can help it, because you'll always be able to find long skinny jeans, but finding the distressed wider jeans a little harder. So I'm going to prepare this one. Tearing is nice. So I don't know, you might want to save some of these other pieces for something. I know it's not cut the neatest, but I could see this as kind of a handle for something. Would be kind of cool. Set that aside. And I like how the tearing looks, so I don't know if there's a use for these. You could always stitch it down to something. Okay, so now I have two longer strips, and I could start tearing these into a little bit narrower strips so that I can weave them. And the nice thing is you don't have to use it all in the same project. Set some aside, because you'll have a nice mix of denim colors if you do it that way. And I have darker blue, lighter blue, medium blue strips, a pocket. That is probably enough to do this first piece. Okay, let me do, whoops. I'm going to mark 8 inches here, 3 inches there. And I'll have all these instructions and sizes. So again, you know what? If you're not attacked by an iron, it's probably a good thing to iron your template, this fabric template, before you get to this stage. If you are attacked by your iron, I feel your pain, literally. Okay, we are going to put some denim, and again, I'm just starting to do a layout. I'll probably adjust a lot of pieces before I go too much further. I may do it something like that with the fringy part up at the top. The other interesting thing is how some of this denim is thick. Also, if you have little scraps like this, save them because they're going to be an interesting little addition in different places, right? So save all the bits, save your weird pockets. The other thing too is as you're building this, remember you also have the accent fabrics. Thing I love about the denim, is that just the denim itself adds so much texture and variety, and we haven't even gotten to the little bits of fabric yet. If you have larger pieces of one of these accent fabrics, you want to hold on to it because we're going to do the lining with it. So set that aside. But if you have little awkward scraps, that's perfect for little angular pieces. I'm just placing things right now to kind of see how much space I'm filling up. So I may need a little bit more scraps of denim as I work, just to add a variety of colors. You can add some shredding to it. The other thing too is you can go sideways. That's kind of interesting, kind of an unexpected. You visually can see that the grain goes in a different direction, so it's kind of fun in that respect. I'm trying to stagger these. I'm also trying to adjust the color so that it doesn't look all the same. I definitely need to cut into much more denim pieces. So just as kind of a reference point, I've used bits of 3 different jeans. One was shorts, and then this one, and then the skinny one. So 3 different jeans right now is where I'm at. I'll just kind of try to keep track of that for you so that you kind of know what you're looking for, how much you need to buy. And the thing is, if you're willing to shop on Facebook Marketplace, you might be able to even find them at thrift stores, but it's generally pretty inexpensive. These were thrifted fabrics. So here's an example of probably why it was rejected is that, these little markings, sometimes they're really cute like these sheep and sometimes they're just dots. This is to guide the colors. So the dark blue did the outline for all the sheep. Now, if it's all registered, if it's all exact, that purple lavender color should be right in the middle of that sheep. The blue is off, the yellow is off. Although the fabric has an interesting pattern, once you know this is off, you could tell that the whole fabric print is not looking like how it's supposed to look. It's all supposed to be registered. It could have been the end of the bolt when they were printing. It could just be the whole bolt was off. So it would be considered a rejected piece of fabric. But if you're doing something like this and it's free, it's fine. At least to me. I don't know. Someone else might be very. If you're making clothes or something, yes, it should be exact. So as I get up here, I'm going to leave a little extra up here so that it could fold over if I want. If you remember my line that I drew right here, this is kind of the 12-inch mark, so it's kind of the corner where my vessel, I guess people call them vessels now, where my vessel will turn. It's not an exact science, but it's just something to think about while you're working on this. You want some of it to wrap around it, and some you want to kind of come to that point right there. I can move it over a little bit if I need to. What else do I need? I need something up here, saving that nice distressed part, saving this nice, really distressed part. I have a nice edge. Let me get another piece of denim, and maybe I'll put a whole piece right there. Back to my jeans. I kind of like this lighter blue. The lighter blue came from these shorts. Okay, so I have the back part, but I have a really cool pockets. Don't want to cut into that. Let me go back and check my other denim. I have 2 other pairs of jeans. So that's a little bit different color. This pair, which is also slightly, well, it's a little thinner, a little darker, a little different shade, kind of very skinny. Let's see. So it's oh, look at this. This is the bottom leggings on one pair of jeans. So many cool things you could do with this. Okay, so if I do cut into this, it's going to be in the middle of the knee where it's really skinny. Save that end, save the wider end up here. So what did I say, 3? This is a 4th pair of jeans. And I'm just giving you numbers so that if you go out thrifting for jeans, you kind of know how many you'll need to get a variety. And again, I'm cutting this piece off the back side and where it's real skinny, because the wider parts give you more fabric that you could use for other projects. This really is a nice balance of texture and colors because there is so much to play with. For example, you have the textures of all of the distress. You have the colors, not just of the fabric pieces you're going to add in the little, but the colors of the denim itself. You have the direction of it, if it's going sideways or vertically. Too much solid might break it up a little bit. So the thing too is, how much distress do I want to add to this? Too much of the texture will take away the uniqueness of it. It's just something to keep thinking about as you're working it. But I do kind of like the way that is up there. Let me keep playing with it. And now I can move on to the next section and work on this next 6-inch piece right here. I have everything placed now. Just for the color and some of the distressed parts, it took 5 pairs of jeans, primarily for the color and the texture. You can easily make this out of 1 pair of distressed jeans, cutting all of the pieces out of 1 pair, but I wanted to change up the colors and add a little variation in texture. So what's going to happen is this end is going to come around and meet up with this end. So I have some pieces that are going to wrap around. So like I have it here, it will actually cover over this area, so I don't need that. I am also going to add, when I'm done, have some more embellishments to add to it. I have a little coin pocket right here. But now what I have to do, I basically did the muslin lining beneath this right there to give me dimensions so that I didn't have to keep measuring everything. But looking at it now, it would be a lot easier to tack it down, to do some quick stitching to hold the pieces down to the muslin, just to make it a little easier. Another thing I did is that I used the seam right here. I thought that was interesting. I don't know, I could put it on top. Kind of stands out more there. I added this other little fabric. I thought it was just too cute to pass up. Did some weaving. And oh, one of the things I did was behind these areas that have a lot of holes, I put a piece of fabric there so you can see it. Same with over here. So when it shows up, you can see the fabric. See, so the bottom 1/2 inch will be for the seam and 1/2 inch at the top, but I did allow a little extra fabric at the top on all of these pieces, so that will be my seam up there. Other than the width, the height isn't an exact science. Oh, the lining is going to be another project after I'm done with this that I can lay out and do separately. Okay, let me grab my needle and go ahead and start. I can just start sewing it down to the backing with a little bit of canvas stitching, top stitching, running stitch, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to start from the center and work my way out. And I'm going to use white embroidery floss. So I'm going to start from the center, and when I'm doing the straight stitching to hold the piece down, just to hold it down, I'm going to use 3 strands of embroidery floss. When I do some canvas stitching or some more decorative type of stitching, I will use, well, canvas stitching, I'll use 6 strands. I'm going to start with this yellow square. Like I said, I'm just going to do a running stitch, making sure I catch all the layers that I need to catch. Let me come in a little closer. So I hope everyone had a good week, did some fun crafty stuff or family things, or just had a good week. I do want to do some canvas stitching. So I think in areas that have a lot of the denim that looks very plain, I'll do the stitching there. But another thing I have to remember is I'm also wanting to add this little bit of embroidery someplace here. So I probably should put that in here somewhere before I do too much more stitching. This is the best part of slow stitching, is just the feel of the needle going in and out. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to start stitching some more and just continue around with the same logic of whatever fabric's on top is the one that's going to get the stitching. I'm not going to stitch alongside the fabric that's behind. I've done more of the stitching, straight stitching around here, but I wanted to do a little sidetrack and do some canvas stitching. Actually, in this case, it's probably Boro stitching people call it, but because I explained once before that in Japanese language, as far as I learned from my mother, was that Boro was the word for like tattered. So if something was, your clothing was tattered, it was Boro Boro. So repairing tattered clothing would be Boro stitching. They call it Boro stitching here, so same thing. So I'm going to actually be doing some Boro stitching or Boro stitching because this fabric is definitely tattered. So I'm just going to do some running stitches. I'm using 6 strands of white embroidery floss, and I finally decided to get some chenille, DMC chenille needles. I needed a very sharp point and a very large eye. So the thing I'm trying to do with this Boro stitching is carry it over multiple layers of fabric. So it doesn't just end in a block of denim. I stitched to here and I'm turning around and coming back down. Now I'm running out of thread. Maybe one more stitch. And then I'll just have to do just a few catch stitches. Now I'm trying to look for more places that I want to do the canvas stitching. I could, this place is very plain right here. I could go right across here. I think I'll do that. I think that would look good. I haven't done a lot of stitching on this side here, but it could do with some nice Boro stitching. I like that idea. So I'm hiding my knot under this layer right here. Take all this beautiful fringe up. Okay. I paid money for this fringe. I think I'll do some horizontal, well, some horizontal Boro stitching here. Well, I'm going to continue this and come back when I have a little more stitching done and show you where I'm at. Here's another suggestion to, if you want to make the fabric look a little less bright, a little more worn, you could come in with sandpaper. Now I'm using the Tim Holtz Ideology sanding block. It's very subtle. It works actually better with the like dark colors. Also, if you have, let me bring it up so you can see it. So this area definitely has a more sanded look. You could see, can you see the color difference there? It's very subtle, but if you work it more, you'll have a really cool effect. You can't work it too much because it will eventually go through. And what you can do is do this before you add it. It just softens that color. It's really nice. Because the fabrics that I picked for this were the faux feedsack fabrics. So I tried to find things that looked like the prints off of a feedsack, the vintage feedsacks, but modern fabrics because they're a lot easier to find and less expensive. So if you can't afford vintage feedsack fabric, there are alternatives and you can distress it yourself. I'm still stitching away. I thought I'd stop at this point. You could see I did some Boro stitching here, or Boro stitching. I did some Boro or Boro stitching here, here. I'm doing some more over here. I did a little bit of some little X stitches or cross stitches here. I might repeat that. I don't want to add too much more stitching until I know where all the embellishments are going to go. I'm trying to keep the top part a little plain. I'll show you why in the next video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I totally appreciate it. And be sure to hit the bell so you're notified when my next video comes out every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, so you can see the next step on how I'm going to work on this and just show you how you can thrift denim jeans and turn it into something useful. So please check out my website, LyndaCreates.com. That's Lynda with a Y. I hope you have a wonderful week. Happy stitching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!